What's going on, everybody? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing, and this is our live stream today. Listen, I'm jumping on early today, about 45 minutes early, because we have the non-farm payrolls coming up in a little over 15 minutes. All right. We were going to just be a little outside of our normal wheelhouse today as we get started and prepare and see what's going on for non-farm payrolls. And then we'll get into our regular session as the morning develops. Wherever you are today right now, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, welcome. Glad you're here. Hope you're doing well. If it's the first time you're joining us, if you're watching the replay right now, go ahead and sit down, get comfortable, spend some time with us. I know you're going to learn a lot. All right. As I prepare here for non-farm payrolls, which again is coming in, you have two news events coming up in 15 minutes, two important news events. You have employment numbers out of Canada, which will affect the Canadian dollar, and then affecting the US dollar, you have hourly earnings and non-farm employment change. So jumping over to the DXY, we see where right now this is the dollar index. Dollar index weighted towards the euro, US dollar, and all other US dollar currency pairs. You can see that it's testing this resistance right now. It's at an important inflection point as we come into those numbers. Most likely, prices are going to key off this today during this session. That's why it's a big session. It's also leading to lots of other setups. I'm going to look at them real quick. We only have about 15 minutes till the number comes in. So about 10 minutes to get fully settled. So I'm going to go through this rather quick. And then afterwards, I will be able to obviously take our time as we normally do with each other and with the charts. So what I expect to happen is either off of the numbers, whether they come in good or bad. Remember yesterday I said we could even get a beat here. You could see 180,000, a good number come in, and then you could see the dollar appear to break above this trend line and then maybe even sell off. Be prepared for everything. There's always the chance that we break this resistance here and also get caught up in this resistance above. I don't know what's going to happen. I know that we're going to be able to react to whatever happens though. This is resistance right now, expected to hold until it no longer does. Let's look at a couple of charts. Let's look at the euro US dollar. This is continuing to fall down towards our target area down over here. Now, being how price reacts off these numbers, I may go ahead and take profit if we start trading to new highs today. I will then, I'll just go ahead and look to take profit. Entry was all the way back over here. It's a nice trade. If we get a look over here, I'll be thrilled. What about some new entries? Where can we look for? Before we get to that, I see that, looks like I could have held on here for about 5 more pips. That's irrelevant. But we are trading a little bit higher here on the US dollar, Japanese yen. You can see, and the reason I'm pointing this out to you because it's important. You see the US dollar, another US dollar is also at another important resistance level. All right, careful of that. And similar to the DXY where it's trading at that trend line resistance, and then you had the resistance above. Look, you have resistance right above. If you break through here, you also have that resistance above. US dollar, Canadian dollar, this is a currency pair that has 2 high impact news events this morning. Nevertheless, it might provide some type of setup. You could see that we traded all the way up into this resistance yesterday. The resistance caused price then to peel back off, and now we're taking another look. If we get rejected here, if the US dollar holds this resistance here, I'm leaning towards shorting the Canadian dollar as the Canadian dollar has been showing strength. I like to go with strength versus weakness. So this is a possible setup that could occur this morning, this session. Australian dollar, US dollar, again, you're seeing some strength versus the US dollar here as well. But this is another pair. If the dollar sells off, that I want to be involved in, possibly going long. I have my stronger resistance down here on this trend line and this support down here. But this lighter support is so far holding. You can see over here, it's light support, but it held over here as resistance. Then it held over here as support after it broke, provided a little bit of resistance, provided support again, and now it's providing support. It's in play if the dollar sells off, taking along on the Australian dollar with the Canadian dollar against the dollar, both look like solid trades. And the last pair that I want to look at really quick is here on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. If I am going too fast and not pausing, I do apologize. It's only because of the news event coming right up. We'll take our time later in the day. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Again, if we start seeing some strength come out of the Canadian, no, this is mixed. This is hard to say. I can't. This is if we would have stayed below this resistance, I would have been looking to come down short. If we were rejected, we're trading right above it right now during this session. I think it's more important where price closes. If price closes above this level today, all right, then at that point, come Monday, we're looking for a retest of this broken resistance here, which should become support, and then possibly there's a trade over into here, which is a nice one. Adversely, if we sell off later in the session, we close below it, which would not then be a signal, because you don't look for the penetration of the resistance or the support, you look for the close, right? If this is just a wick above this resistance level, it never held, and at that point on Monday, that opens up a short possibility as well then. So this is in the moment definitely undecided. I'm leaning towards, if I take a trade this morning, towards the Canadian dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar, Australian dollar, US dollar, and those would be obviously against the US dollar. And otherwise, I'm just continuing holding still this euro US dollar trade. All right, so that's where I'm looking at this morning. The dollar strength continues. I'll be holding this trade into my take profit zone. If dollar sells off, hopefully I could get long the Canadian dollar and Australian dollar. Tipping point, Martin, everybody, Jasmine, we're gonna look at that right now. Look at the pound US dollar. Glad you guys are all here. Good to see you. Pound US dollar, you could see that, again, this is dependent on what happens with the US dollar this morning. Pound is still holding this support over here. You see that support penetrated below, came down, kicked off. This is why we have the support and levels already drawn in. Came down, hit this support, and now it's trading back above this current support. They're both light. All right. It looks like you could get, if the dollar sells off here, this is a good entry point on the pound, right? The dollar sells off here, it's a good entry point in the pound. Dollar's at a big inflection point. Whether or not it holds this trend line resistance or not, we're going to find out soon. And again, don't be surprised if it doesn't, but this one holds. All right. This is, if we get above this resistance here, all right, US dollar is going to be showing some strong strength. Until then, we're towards an area now where it's a high probability that the dollar starts selling off a little bit. So this is a point, if you're looking to get long against the US dollar, where we could begin thinking about it. If you do take this trade, and I suppose your take profit is up in towards this resistance up here, right, in this blue zone, and your stop loss is below the last impulse down here, right around somewhere around there. So decent trade, good trade. Prince, yeah, we're glad you're back. It's been a couple of days. Good to see you. Good to see everybody every day. Jamshad, you also wanted to look at the US dollar, Japanese yen before the non-farm payroll. Let's do that. This is, look, let me step back on the daily with you, and I want you to be able to see this clearly. You could see that we're at this resistance. You see that red line? It's not too bright. We're at that resistance right now. It's a big inflection point. Okay. Is it possible we break out here? Yeah. If you break out, look, probably what will happen. I need to go back down to the 8-hour with you. If you do break out, probably what happens is you come into this resistance here, are rejected by it, and then we see if this broken resistance holds a support. So here's where you should be looking, maybe to look to sell the US dollar, Japanese yen. if it's counter trend, I'm not taking this trade. But up here into this resistance, yeah, dollar again is also at resistance. This is an opportunity to see if trades develop the other way. If they do break out, we play the retests, right? If you break out to the upside here, you could think about getting long at the break of this big resistance, but you either want to be taking profits here or looking to short. You don't want to take a long. I don't take longs on the breakout themselves. If you do break out up there, so you have some resistance right above your head. Yeah, and you're definitely right. We're going to see some volatility on the U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar, and that could either be, that could play out a couple of different ways. The worst case scenario is that price is just jumpy, right, and you whipsaw back and forth on the data. That's obviously the toughest to trade, and that's the worst case scenario to seeing price whiplash around. And we could see a big rejection. We could see a move up towards, if the US dollar breaks past this resistance and we get towards here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, we could easily be towards, trading up towards here soon, which would be a gift. That's a nice place to take a look, because we're at a point where either that's a really nice short or we're going to be turning long. So there's a lot going on right now. This is a wave coming into the markets. We're at some really important technical points. Strong resistance on the dollar, which is leading up to strong resistance here, leading up to some important levels on many different pairs. So we have about 5 minutes to the numbers. I'll pause here for 1 second. What? Cheating? Leaking numbers? We'll see. I mean, that, that's terrible, right? Again, even if we do get some good numbers here, what I'm just aware of happening as like a defensive action is sometimes in the first 5-15 minutes you might get an impulse and then price turn around and reverse, just because we're at such an important resistance level here. And then again, even up here, we have to be very careful what happens up here. Sometimes, often you see price on positive numbers, turn around. Just be aware of that this morning. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just aware of it in case it does. Mark, Rustin, King, what's going on? Like jumping on earlier today. It was nice. I'm glad we're here now. A couple minutes now until the data. Uh, Rustin's pointing out could have been leaked already. We'll see. Um, What am I focusing in on? Looks like the US dollar is definitely pumping up here a little bit, coming down here. I'm going to be watching the US dollar, Canadian dollar. It could break up here, right? But it's also again the hardest point to trade is when you're at those support and resistance because it looks like you're always going the other way. But until they break, assume they're not going to. Here we go. It looks like the print was bad. Yep. Sorry, just cleaning up some waters over here on my end. So this is good. I'm sorry, I'm trying to clean up some waters on my end. This is good, being that the fact that again the dollar was at this important point. This could give it the juice it needs to turn here. Opens up a lot of trades. I'm focused over on the U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar. I cannot get into the Australian dollar, U.S. dollar. That is also one we're watching. Question is right. This is also great now too because now if you're taking any positions here, you know when you're dead wrong, right? You know, if price goes up and takes out this over here, you know you're dead wrong on this. Same thing on the Australian dollar, US dollar. I'm not in this trade, but you know you have not now really defined levels where you know that you're wrong. Same thing here on the euro US dollar. So this is nice trading opportunities. Um, I could get into it more. I could get into it more with y'all in just a few moments after I clean up some things. You got wrecked. That's an important one the Fed looks at. All right, now I'm with you guys and I feel ready to go. Uh, Let me come back up, look at things with some clarity. All right, this is kind of, it's seemingly easy right now for all of us, and the only reason it's seemingly easy is because we've really had our pulse on the market. We know exactly what's going on. It looks like we're going to see a rejection here, at least right now, for a while. Right? I'm not talking about we're going to see a huge trend change. You're dealing here with the yen, and until that yen strength comes in, it's just now the dollar is probably going to be a little weaker than the yen. Probably not the best pair to focus in on. What's probably the best pair is the Canadian dollar. Again, that rejection is now resuming downwards. The Australian dollar, again, this support is holding. We're now resuming upwards. This is the next point to look at what's going to happen on what's going to happen. As far as the euro, well, it looks like we're going to regain this support level up here. Looks like we're going to be heading back up for some more price discovery, find out what's going on. I don't know, maybe somewhere around 1.154 will be headed towards next, and see what happens around that level. Where else are we looking here? What's another? The pound US dollar we want to look at. Pound taking off from here as well. All right. So it's clear the directions of the trades you want to be in. Is the US dollar, Japanese yen the pair you want to be in? I don't think so, because the yen hasn't been strong. You want to go where the strength is now against the dollar. The only hint you have now is that the dollar is going to take a little bit of a breather. How long that lasts, I don't know. We have to get down to this support down here before we look at anything. That's the next move. What happens down here at this support, right? We're wrong up here. We're looking to the support, see how price reacts. How does that translate? It depends on the pair you're trading. Look at the euro US dollar. That support should be this resistance right around here. Let me draw that in. Let me take a look at those numbers. Oh, that's a big hit, Rusted. You got wrecked. That's a big hit. Canadian numbers came in really positive. That's nice. All right, there you go. Looking forward. What's next week? Pretty light week next week. Obviously, retail sales are very important as far as the U.S. economy is concerned. You got to make sure that the retail, that the consumer is still in there. Being that it was the Christmas holidays, I expect retail sales were pretty good. I'm not focused in on the yen pairs today. I want to see that good trade. Good trade. You come in up. Uh, you have light resistance right here. Look at my mouse horizontally, right about where you are right now. But that's light resistance. This is up probably more important place to take a look at. That 75.88 level. Good trade. Good trade. Pound Japanese yen also working her way up slowly. You got on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. You also now have the momentum of the Australian dollar, which is going to be putting in some gains today. It looks like. Let's take a look at the pound US dollar. So you had the number come in first of all, and now you're seeing a tiny bit retrace in everything. It's meaningless. It means nothing. What's going to be important here is the first 45 minutes of the U.S. equities open. That's not until about an hour from now. We should see some continual movement in the direction we saw on the print itself, coming up in about 5-10 minutes, and then maybe at 9 o'clock a.m. that might then peel off again. Will this move retrace itself fully? I don't think so. I think this is, I think this resistance holds now. I think we have to come back down and look down over here right now after the numbers that came out this morning, especially here. We have good numbers out of Canada, bad numbers out of the US. This is where I'm focused. This is where I'm trading. Uh, pa- Pound US dollar, it looks good, right? Why does it look good? Because this support held. The support is holding over here. And I think you're going to get the opportunity to at least come back up. Let me draw in a line over here. If I was playing the pound US dollar, I would be looking as price reach this level over here, that 0.312, to go ahead and set my stop to break even. And then, but I would hold that trade and see if I could get a look into this resistance line over here, which you could extend the tops of these bars over here. And that's going to coincide with this resistance over here. Um, Unless you had a quick and pretty strong pierce, that's probably where I would look to take profits on that trade right now. Alberto, good morning. Glad you're here with us. We started early today. I was glad to be here for the non-farm payroll print with y'all, and that was it's a lot easier when you're already kind of are prepared for what happens either way, right? You could see there was no stress involved. It was nice and easy, and everything is gone and continues to go according to plan, exactly as we've been reading and seeing the market. Is really good when you are able to have your pulse on the market that clearly. It just makes things a lot easier. There's nothing easy about trading, but the more you uncomplicate it and the simpler you take a look at it. How's gold reacting off of that print? That's interesting. That's interesting. Looks like this trend line here is definitely providing support. Uh, if the dollar does continue to sell off here, that could provide a little bit of boost for gold. I wonder if we get another look at this trend line over here, all the way up at 1580. Huh. It's not a bad trade here, because you know when you're wrong. Three. All right. So, what are you all watching this morning? Who wants to take a look at what? I feel like my game plan is perfectly in line here. Took my profits on the euro this morning, and that was a beautiful trade. I got my profits out on the US dollar, Japanese yen. It was a small trade for me yesterday, and now I'm holding short the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Andre, is that trade already triggered? Triggered at 305. 305.06, which was the low of right here. I placed my orders before non-farm payrolls, and as this low here of the previous 8-hour price bar went and triggered, that was my entry. I'm now short the trade, short the pair, and holding. I didn't wait to after the numbers in the print. I had my plan going into the numbers. So it was during yesterday's live stream that I just noted that. I'm sorry, I don't know if it was during the TradingView update or during the live stream, but I did noted that the Australian dollar, US dollar both had important high impact numbers coming out. Regardless of the fact, I was going to trade it just according to TA, simply because if I'm wrong, I know I'm wrong, and I like the setup. The numbers just happened to go in where it was positive Canadian dollar, negative US dollar. The trade triggered, and that's it. We'll see if it works out or not. Or it looks like it's going to, be a good trade, but never know, right? We'll see if we get any. It's important during the first half hour, 45 minutes of the U.S. equities open. We do see the DXY here making lower lows, right? Um, if the dollar shakes off bad data like this, and we break out here to the upside, that's a big tell. That's a big tell, and you gotta be always be ready for it and aware for it. It's almost as if as soon as we always get into a position, you're looking what is the adverse scenario. All right, it's that you don't. It's that defensive posture. You're just ready to react if you need to. You're not defensive in nature, but you're always aware. You're always aware of the other side of the trade. Ofo, Hanero, what's going on? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yeah, you got wrecked. We're not seeing any type of extension yet. It's too early though. Give it a little bit of time. Again, wait for the US equities open and wait to see about an hour from now, and then about an hour and 15 minutes from now, where we're trading at what's going on. Numbers were very supportive of the Canadian dollar and not of the US dollar. That caused me, Panero, to take a short here on the US dollar Canadian dollar, which was the setup that, as we got on here together, I was talking, this is the pair that I was focused in on, and it gave me an entry. We'll see what develops. Uh, Pretty easy, not NFA and non-farm payrolls to trade. I think probably anyone that was here with us saw that there was just zero stress whatsoever. We're ready for everything. It was kind of like a layup. Again, you expect here the dollar to be rejected here, but maybe we just come off a little bit. Maybe the entry CCI just resets a little bit. The Japanese yen is not the pair to be playing to the short side versus the dollar. Go where the strength is, right? So you want to look at the Australian dollar. I couldn't get into this trade. I wanted to get into this trade to the long side here, um, and I couldn't get into the trade, so I was only able to get into the U.S. dollar Canadian dollar. I don't have I don't have any type of take profit yet. What I do have is a stop loss in. I know where my stop is, and that's what I put in first. As price comes down here, right? I'm gonna be focused in here also on the DXY. As price on the DXY comes into this support over here, assuming it does, I know I'm dead wrong. If we make a new high here in the DXY, all right, and come outside this trend line, right? Okay, I know where my stop is here also. Uh, why am I focused on DXY dollar? I want to know what's going on with the dollar overall, not just against the Canadian dollar. Here on this, I'm looking when price comes over here, and on the Canadian dollar, when that happens, I'm not sure if price is going to be trading right around here, where my mouse is right now, at 1.30, which I think it will be, or if it's trading down towards the bottom of this box. At depending on where the DXY is at that point, I'm gonna move my stop to break even and hold that trade. And I want to watch what happens over here. If the DXY breaks down here further and we're coming down and we're testing this level over here, I think the US dollar, Canadian dollar at that point has the potential to be, at least trading at the bottom over here or breaking to new lows. Either which way, I have to give it room. There's no reason for me to be thinking about an exit right now, only where my stop is. And then as we get closer to important levels, the first thing I'll do is move my stop to break even. And then I'm going to watch the levels we're at and figure out what I need to do. The same thing as you've been watching as I did here on the Euro US dollar this entire week. I took my entry off of the resistance over here and I have my stop in. That's it. As we came down, touched here, I didn't take my profit. I waited and I watched to see how price reacted around this level. We came back down in. Look at that. We're coming back down now. I think it was You Got Wrecked who said that the numbers yet weren't holding. I'm not concerned about that yet. As we came down and then had this unfavorable print for the dollar here, as we were at resistance on the DXY, I decided to take my Euro US dollar profits over here now. And as we made a new high above that, this this is now resistance. I think it's going to turn to support. Um, we'll see where we're trading again about an hour and about an hour and 20 minutes from now. So that, Andreas, is how I manage the trade. So I'm focused on stop loss and giving the trade room right now. Also, I I highly recommend MetaTrader 4 over MetaTrader 5. I know MetaTrader 4 is an extraordinarily old product. MetaTrader 5 is the newer version. Traders prefer MetaTrader 4 vastly. All right. So if you're just getting started with MetaTrader, I would re-download MetaTrader 4. Right. If you're using FX Choice, not the classic, the pro version, and do that. And then as far as a video for getting started, right? You want to, I'll find that for you really quick and in 1 second. Hanero, as far as the stop loss, you said about above the spike. I think you're talking about the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Would have my stop all the way up here. 3068. I have my stop in at 3068. I have my stop in right here. Now, is here a good place to put a stop? Yeah, you're dead wrong. If your stop isn't up here, if your stop's not up here, your position side better be smaller than if your stop is over here where mine is, right? If your stop is over where mine is, then you better make sure that if your stop is where mine is, position side could be a little bit bigger. If your stop is over up here, that's a lot safer. But your stop better be your position size better be a lot smaller. Olaf, come down to here. You're going to see a video. If you go into the videos, it's really easy to find because it looks different than the rest. You can see this MetaTrader 4 here, this MetaTrader 4 tutorial. This is the one that you want to take a look at. I can't. There you go. What is the reaction? Let's take a look at the pound US dollar, see how that is reacting. Um, all right. So it's not uncommon after you see any type of news events to see price impulse one way, come back. This is the point where they kind of catch retail traders on the wrong side. And this is why a lot of retail traders get whiplashed. Again, I'm more concerned about what's happening between the U.S. equities open in the first 45 minutes of it, between 9:30 and 10:15 Eastern time, to see that price has gone back and started making higher highs across the board. So the DXY will be making new lows over there. The Euro US dollar, which has come off a little bit, also will be back towards here making new highs. If all that's happening, then I'm confident about the direction and the positions that we have take. And if it's not happening, and if the market is able to reverse this bad news and break out against these resistance levels, then obviously that everything that's happening is the market showing us different. But don't get if your position sizes are set as they should be, if your risk is appropriate, these small fluctuations should not be bothering you at all. And if they are, then your position sizes are off. You're risking too much per trade. You should not ever be risking more than 1%, and probably better 0.5%. All right, don't get knocked out of your position. Give it time to develop. Things don't usually run away in straight lines. But if the market shakes off, if the dollar shakes off this bad data here uh, and goes on, that's giving us a huge clue and hint about the strength of the US dollar. All right. That would be a good thing. It would help us. We would know what we want to do. Right. US dollar, Japanese yen. That's when you'd want to get long the US dollar, Japanese yen, if that were to occur. That's showing us the dollar is really strong. We know the yen's been pretty weak. You want to trade strength versus weakness. Again, if you find yourself getting out of stopped out of positions often within just a couple of pips, that means you know exactly where to place your stop loss. You're just being too precise about it. Better to trade smaller position size and give your stop loss room. What's that going to do is you may think, well, if I'm trading a smaller position size, I'm not going to make as much money. No, if you improve your win ratio in because of that error, because of being too precise with your stop loss, it means that you've got a nice read on the market, and you're going to actually wind up taking more profits and making more money. That's why it's always important also to be aware of the time of the day. It's very common at this portion of the day for to you to see retraces of the move that's happening for the morning. It's too soon to tell and know anything. You gotta be patient here. We have a half hour to the US markets open. Let's look at a 15-minute time frame. So I guess price on the euro US dollar would need to be trading below 1089 in order for us to be trading at a low since the print. Australian dollar holding up pretty strong. Mima, good morning. I would be surprised here. Australian dollar is holding up strong as the dollar kind of retraced that move after the print. You can see the Australian dollar held up well. That's a sign we in the first, next hour and 15 minutes, resume toward the dollar weakness, that the Australian dollar is going to be one of the beneficiaries of that. Richard, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. We started a little early today. This is normally the time we jump online together. We were on about 45 minutes early today, only because of the non-farm payrolls. It was a nice event to be on together to take a look at. And we could see that the numbers came in. Also, we had employment numbers at Canada, which came in favorable. Numbers came in, and I'm interested to see the narratives being laid out over here. If someone checks Forex Live or Zero Hedge, but the dollar so far, let's see if it's going to resume. We have on the DXY here, the dollar, this strong resistance. If you got these unfavorable numbers here, as far as, for the US, and then the dollar comes back and takes out this resistance, that's just a really strong sign for the US dollar. But that's not the base case. The base case is that obviously that resistance is going to hold. And let's see. It's really important, I guess, in the next hour or a little over of trading, that the euro, for example, here will be making new highs. If not, it's very telling otherwise. If that were the case and the dollar broke out over there, I think I would be leaning towards the US dollar, Japanese yen. I'm not familiar at all with that. I have to look into that, Hanera. I'll take a look at that simulator and see what it's all about. Soft Forex. Let me see. Let me just have that there as a reminder and as a note. And I'll look at that later this afternoon. Great idea. Check it out. That might be good for some training classes. I suppose you could just speed up the simulator. All right, now the euro US dollar is actually, and I exited my position. I exited my position all the way up here. Um, and now we're coming down way off. We're just about, I would say about, 5-6 pips away from us now making lower lows since the print. All right. What's going on with the US dollar, Canadian dollar? It's continuing to hold near the lows, as then see Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, those are holding up the strongest. Those are the pairs we were leaning towards. If there was a weak print and a resumption of the trend, Euro is definitely showing some pretty strong weakness. I don't think the opportunity right now is on the yen pairs, but someone in here got into that nice Australian dollar, Japanese yen trade, and that seems to be the strongest and weakest pair of the day. You trade. Tipping point, you focused in on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. All right. Wonder why. So is the narrative that the Fed is going to have to be more accommodative going forward? I bet that's what the narrative is that the weak numbers mean that the Fed is going to have to be more accommodative going forward. That shouldn't be supportive of the dollar, though. Of the equity markets, yes. Of the dollar, no. Let's see if, let's just take a quick look and see if that's what they're saying. No narratives yet. I think they wait to after the move to make up the story. Let's just focus in on the charts. This should be the point where we start reversing upwards if we're going to. Let's see. Mima, I know you were interested in Bitcoin yesterday. I don't know if you saw the alert in Telegram, sent out a look at Bitcoin as it was coming into this support area after the breakout. And right now it looks like it is making higher highs here on the 8 hour, and it looks like the support could be holding. Looks pretty good. Where I'm looking for the euro US dollar, see what she's doing. After I exit a trade, I try not to look at it, but I'm interested here as a clue to what's going to happen here with the dollar. Actually, after I exit a trade, and I exited the trade this morning, I exited. We were trading down here pre FOMC. pre non-farm payrolls, pre NFFP, and then when the numbers came in, we started trading back above. I took my profits from up here. Great trade, and now it came back down. And after I take profits on a trade, that initially thereafter, I try not to look at it. But I'm interested to see which way the dollar leads us now. Um, whether or not we begin turning back up, and I'm kind of trying to get a little bit of a peek of a clue from the euro on that. Surprising, the follow through so far is non-existent, especially here on the Canadian dollar, US dollar, with the favorable numbers towards the Canadian dollar. And again, there is no follow through. If we see any type of continued strength here on the dollar, if we see the highs here of this wick and the resistance broken here, I think I am going to be looking and focused in here on the US dollar, Japanese yen. Australian dollar, US dollar looks to be the strongest here as far as pairs versus the dollar, and holding up really well. I'm just moving this over now. Always looking forward on the calendar to next week. As far as next week, we have the ECB monetary policy minutes, retail sales out of the US. I'm not sure how much of an effect the CPI numbers will have unless there's a bigger surprise than expected. Euro now pushing just about 4 or 5 pips away from the low since the print. We have about 18 minutes to the US equity open. Richard, so let's take a look at the pound US dollar. So if you take a step back, all right, first of all, overall, the structure continues to be very bullish. I can do that on the daily with you. We're bullish, and as long as we stay above this support here and this trend line here, we're pretty darn bullish. You could see the breakout after this 3-week consolidation, the breakout that occurred, came up, peaked, and came back, and price tested into it, and is so far holding, and is now holding above it well. If you go down now to the 8-hour to get a better look, you could see when price peaked down below this support here, the support below it held, and price is now resting over here. Overall, it's bullish, but it's not where the strength is. Strength today is against the dollar. It's with the Australian dollar, right? This is looking more healthy, holding this support better. This is a nice pocket if we do get down here we're interested in. And strength is also with the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar. And I think it's really important when trading to just layer on as many edges as possible. And one of those edges is trading what's strong versus what's weak. And that's why if we flip back here and we see, for example, that the US dollar is going to break out up here. And I don't know if this is more euro weighted right now that we're seeing this little advance here, because the euro is coming off. The euro is showing signs of weakness. The yen has not been strong. Yen is weak. And if the dollar were to break out here, I might be focused if I'm trading with the dollar against the yen or the euro. But I just exited a big euro position. I'm not looking to re-enter it. So Pound looks pretty positive. I just don't think that's where the focus should be, because the Australian dollar is definitely outperforming the pound today. If you look at the pound, Australian dollar, you could look at a daily. You see that the Australian dollar is stronger than the pound today. And so if you're trading versus the dollar, I mean, which of those two gives you more of an edge? The Australian dollar does. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we do. We're just kind of here to discuss and support each other, and just take a look at charts and help each other. That's all. If anyone has a chart they want to, by the way, take a look at and you want to send it over, go ahead and send me a private message on TradingView. Just click this chart window, type Jordan, Lindsay, and then you could send the chart. You could just take a photo of your chart right here, click the camera button, copy that URL. About 15 minutes now to the market open. It's so interesting right now that the Canadian dollar is coming off. It's coming back to my entry. It's uh about 4 pips away from my entry now. And with the stronger than expected Canadian dollar, Canada numbers, and weaker than expected US dollar numbers. Actually, prices right at my entry right now. My entry, my fill was at 0.3046 on the Canadian dollar, US dollar, 368. So what I want to focus in on here is just continue to watch what takes place here on the DXY. This resistance held. Price got rejected sharply this morning off the non-farm payroll print and is now coming back up. Let's look at that on a 15-minute time frame. You could see here, price came up along the resistance. Here was the print. Price sold off sharply, right? Came into this pocket right here. You could see now easily, if you're looking on this 15-minute time frame, the support it came into and is now trading back up. We expect here that this resistance is going to hold and price is going to resume downwards. If it doesn't, it's a big tell about dollar strength. It's a big tell about dollar strength and specifically euro and yen weakness. All right. So we have to be aware. We have to watch. What does that mean? Well, it is Friday. If this doesn't hold here, I'm not going to reverse any positions this way today on a Friday. That would only set up, and we'll check that out during our weekly Forex forecast and analysis, and take a look at our plan setting up for next week. Not a good idea to be reversing to the upside here today. I do expect here that this support will hold if that's the case. I am surprised, and again, I got in up here, but I took my profits this morning after the NFAP print. right all the way up here at right around 1.1009, 7 or 8, whatever. And now we're trading back down, making the lowest lows since the NFAP print, since the non-farm payrolls print, right? So that's surprising. I did take a short here this morning on the U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar. After that data came out, favorable towards Canada, weaker U.S. dollar, and my entry was right down here, and I'm now currently, you know, 1 or 2 pips against me. No big deal. The trade looks fine. I want to see what develops over the next 45, 50 minutes in the markets, as we're about 10 minutes away from the US equity markets opening. Don't get whipsawed. Stick with what's going on. This is what we're watching here. What's price going to do now? And we're at a time of day we're going to find out really soon. I'll be back in just 2 minutes. All right, here we are. We are 5 minutes now from the US Equity Open. And here we go. I assume we're seeing also the resumption back downwards towards the Australian dollar, both the Canadian dollar, yep, and the Australian dollar should be leading the way right now. Euro popping up, recovering. This is why you don't want to get whipsawed during these news events. Let's see what happens now. We're getting to the important part of the day. The next 45 minutes are going to be very telling for what is going to be happening for not only the rest of the session, but next week. It's pretty good. We got a good group of people in here. We have 56 people watching now. That's pretty big for us. We just started recently streaming every day several weeks ago. Appreciate everyone who's gone ahead and showed their appreciation this morning. We're just getting started today. Blair, I didn't even see that you joined us. Glad you're here with us. We just started early today. No one's late, and that's the beauty about YouTube. If anyone does miss us and they want to, see what they missed, you always got the replay. And there are those that watch the replay every day and are never able to join us for the live, who comment on the posts. And I feel like you're part of the family. Just want to say hi to you right now. I know that you're listening. Maria, Frank, how you doing? Glad you're here with us. Good to see you. Frank, you know what? I did a poll yesterday on, let's see if we could take a look at it real quick. I did a poll yesterday. I'm interested to see what the results are right now on how much money people expect to achieve in Forex yearly. And let me first take a look at it. Let's go to community right here. And so it says, what type of yearly return are you looking to achieve in Forex? And you could see here it's between 10 and 25 yearly. I was really happy to see that. I was really happy to see that number because that's something I believe I could help anyone do within a year. Not within a year, well before a year. I think that's a really achievable goal. And I also liked that people had their eyes on this. Of course, not everyone will be able to do that, but there obviously there are traders among you that will be able to do that, and it's good that people have high expectations because it's important to do great things, to have lofty goals, and it's also really important. This is a sweet spot that I think most people should be able to achieve in Forex. Maria, I appreciate that. And just also, lastly, before we continue going here, please subscribe. If you're new here, please subscribe just so you get updated and alerted whenever we go ahead and we're live streaming. You could jump back in here with us just as a reminder. We'd love to have that. Also, below that link, you also see we just started a few days ago this week, this Telegram channel. I update everyone later in the session if there's any new active setups or trades through that Telegram channel. Go ahead and get involved there as well. So far in play, we're at an important resistance level over here. It's so far holding this morning. We've had some pretty weak US data, and so far the dollar is continuing to put up a fight. We have to read what is happening, what that means. We're going to get into that really, I think, during the weekend forecast, setting our plan ahead for the next week. And what would be a good time for me right now, we're at the US Equity Open, 1 minute away, is if within the next 45 minutes, if you see the dollar index making new lows for the day here, then that's a pretty strong sign this resistance going to hold. If the adverse is happening, I'm not going to trade it. I'm not going to trade the breakout, the break of this resistance to the upside. I expect it'll be capped here. We'll come back down, take a look at this to see if it's support again. Either which way, you get above it here and you're coming down, you're testing this. There'll be plenty of opportunity to pick up some really long US dollar positions. Today will not be the day for that. Right now, it's for fading them. I'm doing it with the Canadian dollar. Australian dollar is definitely, I couldn't get into the trade long. And if you're short time frame minded, and we start making a higher high here, you might want to look to take some pips out of the market. That's not my style. I do what works for me and how I make money consistently. But if you start making higher highs here today, that might be a place to look for some opportunity. Here we are now at the U.S. equity market open. Gold looks interesting here. And looks interesting. I don't like gold up at these nosebleed levels, but I do like it right here, this support holding. And now we have what appears to be the US dollar being rejected by this resistance over here. And is it possible that gold plays up into here and takes a look at this resistance over here? It's possible. It's a good risk to reward. If you're just joining us, I tend to be focused on the daily time frame, which I use as a top-down overview to get a big picture, see what's going on, set my support and resistance levels, my trend lines, and then drop down for the 8 hour, which is what I actively trade off of. The 8 hour, I believe, is the best time to trade off of, provides much better filter versus a lot of market fluctuation and noise, makes life a lot easier. And the fact of the matter is, the better you pick your setups and the less trades you trade, the more profitable you're going to be. Is a good place to be looking to buy euros. I mean, my 2 cents for whatever it's worth is that you definitely seeing euro weakness. You see that the strength versus the dollar is definitely Australian dollar and then the Canadian dollar. Probably New Zealand dollar. We haven't looked at it. I'm sure the New Zealand dollar, US dollar is also in that category. You can see that it's up, while the euro is still down. But this is a good place to be leaning. Especially where you. This is a good place to be leaning into the euro long because you know when you're wrong. You know your risk is very well defined, right? So how does that translate down here? Uh, if you're using a really tight stop, obviously it's right down below the low of the London session, right? If you have stronger support down here, your position size would have to be really small. So probably most traders would put their stop, closer to over here, which is pretty close, about 18, 17 pips away from market. And if that gets hit, I would gather to say you're probably wrong also. So it's a good place to lean into the euro. Rosalind, that's a better support level than I had marked in. Well, let's take a look at that. I'm glad you're focused in on the Australian dollar, US dollar. This is definitely, whether it's the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, or the Australian dollar, US dollar, two good pairs to be focused in on today. Obviously, my trade is on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, which I would say is the runner up. Let me take a look at your levels. 6895. All right. So, Wilford, let me start by saying I have the same buy stop in, and that I don't necessarily think it's the best thing. Okay, here's why. Under the circumstances of today, I do like the trade because we peeled off after those positive numbers. We traded all the way down and then peeled off so high against them. So if we resume downwards, and if this dollar weakness holds over here and the Australian dollar will be a beneficiary, I think in this session, we could definitely see some highs and even come close to testing towards this resistance over here, get a free trade in, move the stop loss in right away, or even take the profit. Uh, why did I prefer the US dollar, Canadian dollar? And you could see um, this was the print. We were trading up here, okay? And I had room to place my stop loss below the low of this price bar, which was an up price bar. I like taking trades when I have an up price bar if I'm looking to sell, right? Where if price takes out the low of an up price bar and vice versa. Here on the Australian dollar, you have an up price bar going into the entry. I don't really like it. You see down over here, you have the down price bar off support. That's a much better entry. I wasn't looking to take an entry down here. I was looking to see if we got into this pocket. But when you have this down price bar into support and then you take out the high, that, Wilford, is an entry that I do like and do condone. And up here, not as much at all. Okay. And I want you to know the difference and understand the difference for what to look for in the future. Rustin, looks like it was a nice entry you took on the euro US dollar. If you haven't already voted on this poll, go over to the community tab and go ahead, and while you're here with us now, go ahead and vote. I'm very interested to see how these votes come in. Also, this one is awesome. You're just beginning trading. This should be the goal, right? I could have sworn Trump yesterday announced the new sanctions on Iran. I mean, he did announce it on Twitter yesterday and said they already went on. So I can't imagine this is playing any type of effect into the market. Panera, I'll take a look at this later. I'll see if we could incorporate that into our training at all. Listen, it's late in the day also, Wilford. It's on a Friday. We're in the last session of the Friday, taking a trade up here, where you have your buy stop is not ideal. The U.S. Canadian dollar trade, it's not falling into favor yet, but it's the right trade. Dollar is putting up a fight. It's a good. I mean, so U.S. dollar, Japanese yen is the place. You're into that resistance over here. You could see this resistance, this red line up here, and that's obviously the place to be looking to short it. If you're looking to short here, when you had the weak U.S. dollar numbers, that's also a good place to be placing your short. I was not looking to play the short here only because the Japanese yen hasn't been strong. I was looking to go with strength, which was the Canadian dollar and Australian dollar. But look, it looks like you have the right play, right? It looks like you have the right play so far. And you know when you're dead wrong. If you make new highs here, I mean obviously that's where your stop is, and you know you're wrong. So it's a great opportunity to take a trade. You have had you since I think this was this on Monday, when Iran attacked the U.S. bases. This was during the Asian session Tuesday morning, Monday night in the U.S. And then when there were no casualties, since then, look at the weakness you've seen in the yen and coming up into this resistance. Not a bad place to take a short here. It's a good place to take a short. It's a good calculated high probability trade. That patience is really good, Wilford. That patience is really mature and good. That's going to go a long way. And I also noticed that you're looking at multiple pairs, and you know, again. So I took three trades this week. I took three trades this week. I took the best trade of the week for me was the Euro US dollar, which I took profits on this morning. I took a US dollar Japanese yen long, which I was able to take nice profits, not like that Euro US dollar trade. And now I'm short the US dollar Canadian dollar here today. Three trades, which is pretty much my average. If you're taking three trades a day, I think you're probably over trading. Again, anyone that has a chart they want to share with us, please do that. Just click on the uh, the chart window here on MyFX book. Just type in my name, and then you could send a chart here. You could take a picture by clicking on this camera. It takes a snapshot. Copy that URL and paste it over. We'll look at it, or just let me know. if any pair that you're interested in taking a look at, and we'll review it together. I'm not right now looking for setups. It's too late in the day. I just took a trade this morning. I closed out a Euro US dollar trade today, this morning also, and it's Friday. So, when we get together and we put together the weekly Forex forecast, that's when I'll be looking at the market and looking at what's setting up. Right now, we already have our plan in place that we're following. So I'm not, as we do every day, searching, looking for what's setting up in the markets. Uh, right now, we have our plan. I'm just looking and waiting at where this important inflection point to see what occurs, to see what plays out. So New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar, it looks like we have it drawn in right here. This should be red, right? Just change that to red. That's resistance. We're off of the support right here. The support held. That wick means nothing. Price held above the support, came back into the support, and now we're resuming offward. So obviously, a couple things. Here's what I think. For me personally, I would not take the trade until price made a higher high than the previous price bar. That would put us all the way up here, which would push me about in the middle between my resistance and my support. So there's no way I would take that trade. This is sideways price action. And it is, by the time I got into an entry, also that entry would be occurring on a Friday, late into the New York session. So I'm not interested in that. It would put me at a place where the risk to reward was equal, which is not good. If we break below here, if we break below this support over here, then I start getting interested, as this looks like a possible topping formation occurring here. And below the support, I like taking trades here to the downside. I don't take the break. I take the retest of the broken support, make sure it holds as resistance, and as price resumes downwards, that's where I would get involved. So I'm not looking at this to the upside right now. That's where I would be looking to see something like that occurred. And although this appears to be holding right now, there's just no favorable trade here to take. This trend line here, looking back in hindsight, is really important because it's that break of that trend line. Those trend line breaks provide nice trades very, very often. What's happening with, speaking of trend line breaks, what's happening with crude? Pause one quick second. So I know DJ was in this trade over here off the break of this trend line. That looks really, really good and continuing down here now today. Excellent trade. And there again, look at every time the trend line broke, look at the spills down. So we're now about 20 minutes into the U.S. equity opening. I want to take a look at the DXY and see what is continuing to shape up here. And you can see that the dollar is just putting up a fight, even with the unfavorable news. By the way, U.S. Equity markets are mixed. The dollar is holding its own. It's putting up like a fight. It's got strong resistance right here against the trend line, and it's also got some resistance right above it, strong resistance right above it. Even if we break this trend line, it looks like this one's going to hold at least for a retest of this broken resistance. But until this does break over here, gets above this resistance here, all of a sudden, I think I'm long dollar. Okay, obviously I was long dollar. If you looked at the last weekly Forex forecast, or long dollar minded this whole week, right? This whole week we were long U.S. dollar minded. That played out on the short euro US dollar. But right now I'm weak US dollar minded. As we come into this resistance, I'm turning weak dollar minded, and I have to get above this to become strong dollar minded. That should make good sense. So right here, I'm expecting the resistance to hold. We're looking to switch from this week of strong dollar now to turning towards weak dollar. So why I also liked this range over here of 10 to 25%. Oh, is because I believe something like this should be. I don't know what type of starting account balance new traders would be looking at, but I think this is a plan that almost anyone could achieve in Forex. And 20 years, I think one of the biggest problems Forex traders have is that they want to start trading with a low account, a low account balance, and they want to like be able to trade for a living. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. 100% the wrong way to go about it. I think you should be looking for Forex to make you wealthy in the long run. And I think you have to have 30% a year is a good return. It's not even a good return. That's a phenomenal return, right? But look what happens between even years 20 and 30. I mean, insane money, right? So the first 10 years, you know, you might not think that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money you're building up. Because look what happens over the next 5 years, in the next 20 years. And if you're not thinking down the road 10, 20 years, then I think you're approaching Forex wrong. And I think either you have to change your mindset or find something else. Been online now about 90 minutes. We started early this morning and just kind of settling in now. I think the next 20 minutes are pretty important for what happens and the direction of the day. Let's see what happens. Again, weak US dollar putting up a fight as we come into this area of resistance. We're watching closely what happens all week long. It's been US dollar strength that we've been focused in on and taking advantage of. And now we're looking for that to reverse going into next week. We got a lot of pairs up at resistance and supports. US dollar, Japanese yen at the resistance. We have US Canadian dollar coming off of this resistance. Australian dollar, US dollar coming well up off this support. And the story is unraveling. Maybe not as quick as some of us would like, but it is unraveling. I'm quite undecided about the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, and that's all I can say. I'll get into that, I think, on the weekly Forex forecast. If we do take out this resistance here and hold the support, then early next week this possibly sets up to a good trade to the long side over here after reclaiming this support. Right, it broke down. We're having a test of it right now. If it reclaims it to the upside here and we get any type of retest of this broken resistance coming back as support, this looks like a nice trade going into next week. Looks like the Australian dollar is again leading to the upside here. This should have been a blue box. When you could see the support down here and the touches, but then you see the body of the candles all the way up here. I think this is where you need more of a blue box. Price is right at my entries here. I'm short over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Again, the things that I take into, I'm trading this technically perfect, right? I have the rejection of the resistance. This is where price went ahead and made the lower low of my entry. Why it was on this price bar down here during the news release. But I am noticing that we had really favorable Canadian economy news and non-favorable U.S. economy news, and prices basically holding up pretty well so far. Obviously, you like when trades fall into favor right away as you take them. That doesn't always happen. I'm still trading it according to plan, but I would like to see more of a reaction. There you go. Thanks, Blair. That's why we're seeing the strong Australian dollar today. And I suppose this is going to be a catalyst next week here. It's not until Friday morning in Europe, but we'll have retail sales also coming out of the pound. Kuna, welcome. Glad you're here with us. Good to see you. Hope you've been following us for a while. Looks like the euro is finding its way now, making a run. We have been saying that it was, between 9:45 and 10:15 Eastern time was when we were looking to see the DXY to resume its trend. It looks like it's making an attempt now to do that. Again, don't get don't get whipped around these news announcements. Stick to your plan. When you were wrong here. It was so easy because price rejected off of, if it went up and broke out of this trend line. Okay, then we're wrong. We have to reevaluate. Don't chase it. We're wrong. Uh, we want to see the DXY making new lows here to be comfortable going into the weekend. The dollar just continues to put up a fight, though. We don't know what's going to happen. Good, great, great comment. Always be looking forward. That's very, very, very timely and good comment. Appreciate that, Kuna. And so the question on my mind is that going to be a sell the news type event for the yen, or is that when we're going to start seeing some yen strength come back into the market? And why do I say that? I don't know that it's going to happen. That's not yet my base case. Uh, I'm considering that and aware of that because, listen, the trade deal is non-existent. Even if they sign it, it's meaningless. China bought a huge amount of soybeans this week from Brazil. Uh, they are not looking to increase their grain purchases. And Trump said this week he thinks that he's going to wait to get reelected to start even working on phase two. Uh, and I believe if Trump gets reelected, he's going to come down hot and heavy on the Chinese. And so what I'm saying, or I'm getting at, is I think we're looking at, we're getting closer and closer to this global slowdown. Manufacturing is down across the board. Here in North America, we have the Canadian economy in recession, the Mexican economy in recession. Is the US soon to follow? There's a good chance of that. I don't think ever before both the Canada and Mexico have been in a recession without the US following. And bringing us back to oil on this spike you had this week. I know DJ was able to take a short down over here, but is this the high of oil that we're going to see? That could be if we enter this global slowdown. If we enter a global slowdown here, we could be seeing much lower oil prices in the year or two ahead, and this might have been the gift. Or we could go back to, that going into the election year, we're going to see the status quo remain, and we're going to see continued appreciation of US dollar, of Canadian dollar, New Zealand dollar, and weak Japanese yen. This is kind of why I hang out on the swing trade time frame. I'm able to kind of, to be able to see what's happened. This is this week. Go last weekend in our plan going into next week. This is what we looked at. We're able to profit from it pretty. I don't want to say easily, but it seemed pretty easy this week, right? And it's just the easier place to make a living. You're not late at all, Benedict. Glad you're here. Not at all. We started very early this morning because of the non-farm payrolls, and you know what? Whenever anyone could join us, it's the perfect timing for them, for us. Again, we always upload the replays if there's anything worthwhile to catching up. I don't think that this is a session that you need to watch the first 30 minutes of, because we weren't running through the pairs looking for setups. We already knew our plan going into non-farm payroll and are now just trading our plan. So I don't think you even need to go watch the replay on this one. I think you're good to go. DJ, I don't know. You're trading. It's your trade, and you're on top of it, and I'm happy to be watching it. You know, I and I think that, wow, the take profit that you're looking for, that's so sweet. If you get it, um, I'm trying to think long term, and I, I'm trying to figure out if we got any test of this resistance, if I would be looking to try to take a swing trade on this and turn it possibly into a long term position if it gave it to me. I'm not sure, but you got me thinking. Gold is tricky right now. So, gold did came down, and so far this trend line here is holding. And now with what appears to be the US dollar at a position where it looks like, we could see some dollar weakness in the week ahead, so long as that everything holds up here, this trend line holds and this holds here, it's possible gold takes a look up here all the way up to this trend line. It's possible. It's tricky to trade right now though because it's so volatile, and it's kind of like where the pound Japanese yen was in this area, right? And it was only here this week, yesterday or the day yesterday, when I said finally the pound Japanese yen looks like it's in a place where we could look to take a trade along over here. And so I feel like gold is the same way right now. I feel like gold is a bit jumpy, bit volatile, and for me, it's not clear. And I'm always just try to focus in on what's clear. Hanero, Alberto, the simulator had me thinking about that. Yeah, I got a lot in store here to kind of help bring everything up to the next level. Bear with me just a little while longer. So we're about we're about 6 minutes away from the point, as things started going squarely against us, where I was looking to see whether or not we would be back towards the lows of the day here. I have to say the vacation was fantastic. The 2 weeks off, or 10 days off, whatever it was. Coming back in, obviously on the last two weekend Forex forecast, I felt like I was off my game after only doing those once a week, and then coming back Monday morning, starting the session off, I felt really off my game. But by the end of that session, I felt back into it, and Tuesday on fire. And I think since I've been my read of the market has been pretty good. I'm very happy about it, and really beneficial to be doing this here with you guys every day. It really, really, really is extra beneficial because I spend more time than I would if I weren't doing this with you. If I weren't doing this with you, I would not be spending the amount of time looking at the charts. I would be able to do it much quicker. But by spending that extra time, what an asset. So the euro US dollar is well, it here's the thing. Playing it as a dollar story, right? Dollar. Uh, let me review early in the week. Over the weekend, we're over here, and everyone was really, really, really bullish on the euro US dollar. We talked about the US dollar was coming into this support over here, and until and unless, let me jump down over here. And as long as this held, this support here, and as long as this trend line support held here, that we're expecting this to hold. At that same time, on the euro US dollar, we were trading up into here, and everyone was really bullish. And we said, no, we expect this resistance to hold. And it did hold. And as price showed that, we got short. Same thing is happening right now, reverse. All right. The dollar index is trading up into this resistance. So, and unless this doesn't hold, and unless this resistance doesn't hold, we have to be right now turning bearish on the US dollar, which we are. So the euro US dollar, we expect, is going to regain this resistance right here. This is resistance right now, although it never made it down to the next support. We expect that we're going to get above here and then trade a little to the upside, right? We'll reevaluate how far to the upside we're going to go, depending on what happens if we get down to this support level, what happens right there. So the euro US dollar has a bullish tint to it, except that it's lagging other pairs, right? It's lagging the Australian dollar, it's lagging the Canadian dollar, it's lagging the New Zealand dollar. So it's not really where I see the edge or the advantage to be longing this right now. Are we going to see next week this area over here? It looks like it, and that's a nice trade, and it's a pretty decent risk reward going into it. And that anyone taking that trade, I applaud it and I see it. We still got work to do. We still got work to do here today and this morning. Although we're back trading down, we're not making new lows on the DXY. Dollars hanging in there, and nothing's coming easy. Yeah, of course, you could ask a question anytime without asking. The Lamboy, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. If I comment on UUP instead of the DXY, I'm not familiar with UUP. Okay, this is dollar index ETF. Oof. Is this what you're looking for? I mean, this is just too jumpy for me. I can't give any type of I can't speak about this with any type of authority. And if I don't know, then I'm not going to tell you guys, right? I'm always happy to share my insight and offer whatever advice or help I could offer Of course, it's just, to help you and inform you as a trader. Ultimately, you're the one making the choices and decisions. But I can't give any type of edge here to help, unfortunately. Quite different, and I just can't. There's no type of read I could get on here to be any type of help, unfortunately. So Martine, definitely, and I might even end a little early today once we're all set, working together and putting our information to be more helpful for you in that. I can give you an example here on the trade I took this morning. Here this morning on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, we had price coming up and into this resistance level over here. This was during New York yesterday, and definitely came off it pretty hard. I did actually an update on TradingView on this. I was looking for price to come back up, get another look towards this resistance. And then I had placed my short orders if the resistance was rejected and price resumed downwards. And my entry was right here at the low of this price bar over here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. But I plan on putting together some information to be a lot more helpful as far as not only entries, but also, and more importantly, stop losses, and more importantly than that, position sizes and risk management. And then, of course, the take profit, which comes after all of those things. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. I wish that I could be more of a help, Lim boy. Uh, I can't. There you go. I like to see that. I like to hear that. So, although right now, obviously, I'm not looking to take a trade right here personally. First of all, a couple of things. Rustin had a better looking support down here. Why? So Rustin had. Let me draw it in. Rustin had a support line right here. You could see the tops of these bars. You could see over here, it continued to hold the wick below it, but it held. This area was resistance. And now, so that resistance is providing support. It's a weak one. It's a weak support, but it's a support. And just let me jump over to the Australian dollar. It's similar to this one. It's a weak one, but it was in play, and it's definitely a support. And playing it off of, especially if I assume he's playing it off of, I don't know if it's the 1 hour, uh, but if you were buying over here on this test of supported holding and you were buying somewhere right around here, that's a good buy and a good entry. That's not how I trade, or what I'm looking for to happen though. If I am to take a trade here on the Euro US dollar, this will be next week, whether it was Monday or Tuesday, and whether or not we made it above this resistance right here, closed above it. If we came back it down and test it and then resume upwards, that's something that I like looking at. Um, if we come back down and test here again and resume upwards, as long as we're holding here on the DXY. That's something that I would look at. But again, I'm very picky about my setups. I take about 3 trades a week, and this is not one that just seems to be giving a better edge for me. I like the Canadian dollar here, the US dollar, Canadian dollar short, and we're going to see what develops there. Not sure. So, right, it could, I mean, you have oil coming off. That could be a factor. I'm surprised with the such favorable uh data towards the Canadian dollar and away from the US dollar that we're not seeing more of a reaction. This was a big move yesterday, but this was also a big a big spike up yesterday. Um, the trade still looks good. I'm just going to trade it according to what's on the charts. I have the entry and off of a correct trade, and price is just a few pips into profit. That's fine. I'm going to give it its room and see what happens. I don't think we looked at the pound Australian dollar at all. So I noticed that last time we looked at this, we made this annotations. This is for the head and shoulders, possibly developing. And what this says to me, if we get below the neckline over here, this neckline, which is providing support right now, a trade below this looks really, really good. But until we break down below that, I don't think that we will. I see we're coming into some support over here. I want to draw that in. If we are able to get a test of this support down over here and bounce off it, I'd like this to the long side. This is really bullish, the pound Australian dollar. Take a step back. Is this a topping pattern? Is this a head and shoulders top? Absolutely, it could be, but you gotta get below this support down here, and then you gotta get below this neckline, and then I'm interested in the trade, and then I think it could be a fantastic trade, but everything is pointing, you know, differently to me. I didn't like the trade up here, although it's working out favorably. I like trading off of this support towards the trend. Um, so that's my look at it. CMAC, were you the one who pointed out this possible head and shoulders developing and was looking to fade it up here? And if so, nice work. As far as the fade, it's too soon to tell if this is a head and shoulders. We'll see right here. We'll get a better clue what happens at the support. But if you faded it from over here to down here, fading it off again, that's hard for me to see. I guess you have over here a resistance. Let's draw that in. Nah, I appreciate everyone and everyone's input and look. Because I call this morning a lot of work. Ever since we had the non-farm payroll print, why do I call it a lot of work? Every time you get close to an important support and resistance, it's a very critical juncture, and until you get off it safely, it's a lot of work. And you could see what happened from here. Was the print down, came back up, tested up, and now we're back towards the bottom of that range, not yet making new lows. If we start making new lows, then the work is done and it gets a lot easier. But holding it through here, which we talked ourselves through, uh, and again, and also if we were wrong, we weren't looking to chase to the upside, right? We would wait until Monday to reevaluate and see what happened. Uh, is very important, very mature. If the move from here to here was too much for you, that means you're trading too big of position sizes. You're not gonna get everything in order until you first figure out position sizes. Again, do not ever risk unless you know what you're doing. Do not risk more than 1% on a trade. Better 0.5%. And if you think that's too little, you can make anything that anyone's looking to achieve here risking 0.5% a trade, including this level for sure. So one that's really important, but one of the things that I know as my journey as a trader, that I also used to try to be preemptive of patterns and be like, well, I see a head and shoulders forming. If I take the top of the shoulder, then well, that just gives me much more potential for profit. And I think that's probably quite normal for traders to think. If I thought it, then I think that other traders think it. Uh, this is not the way to do it. The way to trade a head and shoulders is on the break of the neckline. Why? Because it offers the greatest profit potential. The greatest is not from what could be the longest. It's the one with the highest probability of working out in your favor. This is a low probability trade, because you're although you are visualizing what could be a head and shoulders, it's not yet. All my annotations are gone. I just threw in those supports and resistance. I assume they're over here on this chart. Here they are. So let me delete that. So the important piece here, though, is you could be right. This could be a head and shoulders. Not only could you be right, we could break the neckline, and this could be a home run. But where you take the neckline to the peak, that's your expected, right into that support is your expected profit. Um, so look at the difference between here, the break down to here, or is from here to here. It's a little bit more, but not much. Better take the higher percentage trade than going for the max reward. I don't know. If the video is too long, most of the people that are in here with us stay through the entire video. It's them I'm concerned about. They're the ones putting in the effort. They're the ones that are going to make it. And I think it's good for me. It's good for them. If it's too long for you, watch the portion that's good for you. You can watch the first 20 minutes or half hour of the normal uh, live trading session, where we take a look at basically all the pairs, see what the most important setups are happening in the market, and that might be your sweet spot, what you need to focus in on. But for me, and I think for most of us that are involved within the community, I think the videos are good size. Wilford, I don't know if you got a hold of that or not. Yeah, Blair, I appreciate that. I agree with you. I think so. I don't mean to sound selfish. Obviously, I'm not. They're good for me, and they're beneficial to my trading. And for those of you that I would consider to be like the core of the community, they seem to be really good for you too. And I think that's important. And yeah, I think that's one of the Blair, you're hitting on one of the most important factors is the fact that trading is not lonely. It brings in really strong community and therefore also insights across the board from me to you, from you to me, and makes us all better traders. So that's a win-win. There's no way I'm considering shortening them. Again, people can watch what's good for them, and if that's 20 minutes or if that's 3 hours. I feel like the first half hour, 40 minutes of the session provides a lot of like info for like what's going on with the market, but the rest of the session, they're spread out, but that's where really the gems are found. That's where information is shared that's going to turn someone into a really good trader. Also, this Bitcoin trade is really well into profit now. We got a good look at this. How do I do this? Over here, yesterday, took a look at this new trade alert on Bitcoin. Let's just take a on everybody. This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing, simply the best analyst. Could you guys hear the audio on this? I want you to take a look right now at Bitcoin with me because Bitcoin is setting up right now nicely for what looks like a continuation, a successful test of support. And now let's see if we get some resumption back towards the trend. This is a nice place to look for a setup. Let's take a look at it together. But before I do, I first want you to get a look at the bigger picture here. Look at this area over here. This was support. You could see over here, Bitcoin held the support. You saw an initial breakthrough, and then Bitcoin popped right up. Came back down and fell through that support pretty cleanly. That broken support came back up and tested and held as resistance. And then this whole area was resistance. Tested again over here. Now we broke through that resistance. What happens after you break through resistance? Look over here. Look at my mouse, look at the horizontal line. Price came up and tested that little bit of resistance, coming back in and testing the broken resistance to see now if it's going to hold as support. Come down with me, look at the 8-hour. Here's what happened. You had the breakout, came back down, and now we're testing this pocket of support area. If we resume upwards overnight today, if the next 8-hour price bar here goes ahead and starts making higher highs than the previous price bar between either Asia or London, this is a valid signal and a signal that you should look at go ahead and now buying Bitcoin. You have nice risk to reward. Where's your risk? Okay, you could set a stop somewhere around here, somewhere, depending on your position size now, everybody, right? The further away your stop is, the smaller your position size is, obviously. A tight spot, let's look at the true trend. Okay, here's the last penetration of the entry TCI to the downside. You could set a stop loss right below this blue box of support, somewhere around 7,600, and that's a good place, a safe place to set a stop. You know you're dead wrong if price and only if price takes you back into the trade. Otherwise, do not get into the trade. Okay, what else are we looking at? We're looking at this new trend is being established over here for short-term traders. The entry CCI is pulled back. We're now ready off of this support. This broken resistance should hold as support to test back upwards. It's a really high probability place to take a trade entry. It looks good. As far as your reward, don't put any take profits in. Wait and see what the trade gives you, right? I would look all the way up here at around 9,000 before looking to take any profits. That's why I'm saying the risk reward is really with you on this trade. I want to step back and look back at the daily time frame with you. I want you to see what else is going on over here. I want you to see and notice you have a head and shoulders pattern also right here. All right, here's the neckline. You had the breakout, and now we're over here and we're testing support. What happens next? If price takes you into the trade, this looks like a solid entry. Wanted to make you aware of it. I want you to consider it. See if it. There it is. And just the point of all that is, listen, if you're not part of that Telegram group, go ahead and get up there. I send alerts out later in the afternoon if anything's developing like that. Could Bitcoin area value be under market manipulation? So the question is whether or not that area could be under market manipulation. And I assume all markets are under manipulation. And if by manipulation you mean market participants trying to do things for their benefit, right? Whether it's the gold market or any other market, every player, I suppose, is trying to manipulate for their benefit, but that doesn't matter. We are the player that we are, our place in the ocean, and we make our living within it, right? So it doesn't, whether a price is being manipulated, me or you or anyone else will have no idea of what manipulation is going on anyway, or how to benefit from the manipulation. So we just trade what's on the charts. Euro picking up. US dollar, Canadian dollar still lagging. Uh, Now, I'm still sticking with it, and I'm going to trade according to my plan because everything still looks good. I would like to see the DXY make our life easier. Uh, let's wait. Maybe after the close of London, we'll finally get a little bit of a drop. Someone, Rustin, mentioned that a lot of options were going off. What time they usually go off is, I guess they went off 42 minutes ago. They usually go off at, is it 10 a.m. Eastern time? Either way, the resistance so far looks like it's being rejected. I'm going to hold my trades according to plan as we make the transition, hopefully here off this resistance. If not, then we'll trade it accordingly. That's why it's really nice trading off of this resistance. You know right away when you're wrong. Someone was talking about they see the Australian dollar possibly going down next week. I think they must be. If you have a chart and you could send the chart over, please do that. Um, I'm assuming you're looking at this resistance level over here. Wilford, long on the Australian dollar. You're either looking to move your stop to break even as you come into this resistance and seeing what happens. If the dollar is turning here, by the time we get towards this support over here, I think the Australian dollar has a good chance of already breaking above that resistance. An easier play here getting long is obviously once you get the breakout. If you get a breakout above this resistance, you're going to come into these peaks pretty quick. I think that's where you get rejected back down to the downside. Let me try this. So peak above this resistance here. I think you get rejected here. Coming down of this test successfully as support or resumption upwards. Get above here, you look strong to the upside. And don't forget, we're coming off of this year-long trend line break. Everything's holding up bullish so far. Leaning off of this support turned out, again, sometimes I'm too precise in what I look for. I was looking for down here. I couldn't get in over here even though I wanted to. And I was watching it. I wanted to get involved in the long. I couldn't. And, not a good place to pick a spot. Good place to pick an entry here. I took that entry, King. I'm glad you saw it also. I took it out here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. I'm waiting for the trade to play out. Um, you know, we're seeing the DXY finally making a little bit of a move back towards the lows since the NFP print. It's a little bit of work today, right? Not so easy. We've been live a couple hours. I want to take a couple of minute break here. I'll be back in a moment. All right, testing the low now since the NFP print. It would be nice to get below there and start really working our way down, making life a little bit easier. Again, a lot of work has gone in. Takes a lot of work, but you know, we played through that with really a lot of calmness and knew exactly what was going on, and that's what it takes at the end of the day. Gold making that run up. Well, for a great comment, right? So again, we look for waves. Waves usually come in together. Yesterday we were waiting for that setup of waves. We saw it coming in. They're coming in right now. But what's happening? It is on a Friday, uh, and we knew it was going to be a catalyst around this, right? And just because it's a Friday, and this normally we're laying back here Fridays around this time. Just because it was a Friday today, because of what was occurring, specifically when you came into a strong resistance or if it had been a strong support area, it is a good place and opportunity to take the setups that occur. And, you know, but very, very good insight in noting that they're occurring on a Friday and not ideal. But also just keep in mind also, just because we're seeing a turn here, the turn could happen straight up and straight down, but normally they happen like this, right? And if we see break rejections, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have other opportunities to take trades. Even like, for example, right here on the US dollar, Japanese yen, this is maybe a poor example, but maybe what happens is on Monday during Asia, you get another test of this resistance and another opportunity to sell it. And across the board, that could happen. Even here, really on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, maybe we take another look up towards this resistance before coming down into the trade. I might get stopped out of here, and then we might test up here, and then I might take another look long. Well, I guess the whole point of that is don't ever be in a rush. Uh, wait for your setup to come to you and take your setup. Martin, hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you again next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Wilfred. I appreciate that. King, this is what I'm hoping transpires as well. Right now, there's a lot of work being put in there. It's not really working out, falling into my favor. But that would be good. So what's nice about this though, King, is it's really supportive of the DXY. If the DXY is rejected up here, and next week we see some dollar weakness, if that's what transpires, this is going to work out really well. To the flip side, because right now we're expecting that this resistance holds over here. We're expecting to at some point, we're expecting whether it's here or it's like this, we're looking for a look at this support over here next, this green line support, and then we're going to watch and see how price reacts. If we make it through the support to the downside and we come down and we're looking down here, then I think that target you have on the US dollar, Canadian dollar is definitely, we're going to be looking at the lows and then maybe make new lows. So that's what we hope is going to happen. Uh, the only thing that we're waiting for and watching for, we know when we know we're wrong, if we break out here to the upside. And if we do, we're going to look for this resistance to hold, see if we fall back in, test this support, test this broken resistance as support, see if we take another look upwards, or if the support fails and we go back down into this area over here. Uh, so this is the advantage of trading off of the support and resistance, is you know right away when you're right and when you're wrong. And right now we're making that transition that we've been with all week, and we're making the transition from going with a strong dollar bias to a weaker dollar bias. No. So Blair, if you have any idea how strong the correlation is between the Canadian dollar and oil, I'd be super interested to know. I'm just taking it off the chart. I'm just taking my setup off the chart, and I have an entry. Um, you know, and I have no idea what's going to happen with crude going into next week either. We've come pretty hard and pretty fast. Are we coming into some support over here? Is that going to, is this area going to hold over here? I have the support, you know, right here. I have it drawn in at 58.34, 58.42. And then are we going to turn upwards? And I have no idea. So I'm only just trading what's on the chart, and I'm not really taking into account the strength or weakness of crude at all. I am focused in more on the U.S. dollar and Canadian dollar, and my what I was looking for is if we got into this resistance here and we get a change in sentiment in the dollar, to know that the Canadian dollar has been outperforming, and see if that continues. Blair, I don't, and that's probably a good thing to do. I think I gauge risk in the market mostly off of the yen. I think if I were, uh, I never trade bonds. I think if I did trade bonds, I would be shorting bonds here, and I think that the next move out of the Fed is going to be they're going to be forced to lower rates over hiking them, and of course, the closer you could lean into off of this resistance over here, that would have been much better. So the entry should have been, well, it's pretty close to where you should be entering the trade. But you know, I think that we're going to be looking next at lowering rates, but I don't trade them. So is it advisable to hold the Australian dollar, US dollar over the weekend? Um, so, I mean, depending on what happens the rest of the day, if you go on the DXY and you start making new low, here's the low of the print of the after the news. And Nara, this is why it was so difficult to trade for you, because you had this whipsaw. You had the whipsaw all the way like this. All right. So if you if we go on to make new lows on the DXY and hold them into the close, I would feel very strongly comfortable about holding the Australian dollar, US dollar over the weekend personally. If we stayed where we are right now, and you were in what depending how far into profit you are, if you were 20 pips or so into profit, I would do it. But if you're unsure, then I wouldn't do it. But here's the thing: is and this is important for everyone, no matter what time frame you trade. If you're taking your entry off of the resistance, or on the US Australian dollar, US dollar, off of the support, you're coming to an area now. I couldn't get into this trade. I wanted to, I couldn't. If you did and you got it down somewhere near off the support, right now you could just lock the trade to stop to break even. But the point is, as you're coming off of the support or the resistance, that's the difficult part. You're not looking to get out of that trade so soon. You're looking to have your stop, so you know when you're wrong, and then you're looking to hold that trade, wait until you get to the next area of support. Watch what happens. Give price the opportunity to break through, right? Give it the opportunity. If you see it resuming back upwards, okay, either keep that break even in, take out the break even, no problem. I don't mind taking break even trades at all, because by giving them room to profit, I get the profit. But if you see this coming into some type of support and then resuming upwards, you could also take your profit. But don't get into a good trade and look to take profit too soon. That's the whole point, is don't get into a good trade and then look to take profit too soon. Right now, you're seeing a possible turning in sentiment of the US dollar. Until proving wrong, let's see if the sentiment turns. You're at the turn. It's a good place to be taking positions. And I don't know that this is going to happen. You have some strong resistance up here, but going into the news event of China, the US signing the trade deal, there's a good chance that going into the event, you get the appreciation. It's after the signing I'm worried about whether or not that move ends then. Be right back. Yep. Sound was off. Appreciate that, Blair. Uh, yeah, I agree. Great, great things ahead for this year. Um, so you notice I do get a little quiet around this time on Fridays after we've, have gone through a full week, and I'm quite okay with that. I do definitely want to stick around though into the London close, and I want to just, you know, see what's going on with you guys. I'm probably going to be a little bit of a down tempo here, not really offering or saying too much unless someone brings up something they want to look at or any type of discussion comes up. But there's not too much to add to the conversation on my end at this point because we all are just holding on according to plan here. And so I leave the floor to you guys. Plus one to that, Wilford. Yeah, this is about the time Maddie would jump on in. Um, is the euro US dollar pittering out? I don't know. Definitely, we're about a half hour to the London close, and expect some spiky movements into that. Everything looks good. Again, get in the habit of making sure you know where your stop is from the very beginning, but get in the habit of giving the opportunity for the pair, for the trade to fall into profit. Taking profits too soon in the long run doesn't work out. You want to definitely. I'm always fine with taking trades at break even, knowing that they have the room to fall into profit. You don't get the profit unless you give it the room. What's Tesla at 1,000 today? Mm, I mean, personally, no. As far as Berkshire Hathaway is concerned, I've never have been interested in it. I'm I'm not interested in Warren Buffett. So I mean, the guy's done a good job, right? He's had the greatest bull market in history behind his back. Again, my uncle retired young. By young, I mean like I believe it was in his like late 50s, maybe early 60s. He had two newspaper routes his whole life, and he invested in the stock market his whole life and would hold things and hold things. He retired a multimillionaire, two newspaper routes, right? Warren Buffett has done great things. So a couple of things about Warren Buffett that I'm not a fan of is that, well, for example, he's on the record of talking about how bad it is holding cash. He's holding $120 billion in cash right now. He definitely missed the whole tech move, whether it was Google. He has talked really bad about gold. He calls gold a barbaric relic. We all know that's not true. We all know that it's money, right? And he's also done the same thing about Bitcoin. Why? Well, it seems to me that he's kind of like uh, up there pushing the government agenda and narratives, and not a fan of that. He was able to take a big investment in Ford during the crisis. It was $1 billion investment, but he had the backstop and bailout of the U.S. government. So I'm not a fan. I believe he's an insider and gets insider treatment. And you know, if he truly believes that gold has no place in today's financial system, then I have no respect for him whatsoever. Yeah, totally. Both Jim has been a great source of inspiration throughout the years, and also Max Kaiser. I mean, this guy is, he's just someone who has a really keen insight on the markets, and he's someone who's been right time and time again, and great figures to follow and watch. Paul Tudor Jones, one of my favorite traders. Learning what I can from him. Uh, Paul Tudor Jones and also Stanley Druckenmiller. Woo! Minus 36. Well, that's okay. You guys got hockey, right? So that's everything right there. Yeah, have a great week, Maria. Definitely. Just be aware. Everyone be aware. Um, Everything's looking good here as far as the turn. What do you mean by everything looking good? We're coming off the resistance here. This is so far holding. We know we're wrong if it doesn't, right? But we're making the DXY is also making the lowest lows of today right now. This looks pretty good as far as the dollar is concerned, as far as the sentiment shift away from the dollar. Is this support line I have here the best? I don't know. Let's reevaluate this. Or why even have it here? I think this is more of not really. That's not really anything, is it? I think that belongs all the way down there, actually, and which means we have some decent room, and even to the tips of that, I'll draw a blue box in there. You listen, you guys always are the ones making decisions, managing your own positions. All I'm trying to say is if you get into a good entry and a good trade, you know, don't be afraid about letting it develop. And um, I'm not saying we get to test down here before we break above here, but I think that has a chance of happening. But as we're coming in here now, everything was looking pretty good. And there was a lot of work this done by a lot of work. I mean, after the non-farm payrolls, that wasn't easy. The spike down, which everyone thought, that was not supportive of the dollar. That looked and sounded right, and then really quick spiked up. Really difficult. A lot of traders start getting long here. I know it. It's not the thing to do. You know where you're wrong. And now things are back down towards the bottom, so things look like you know status quo is holding, and we'll see what happens further. Nothing wrong with that. Smart move, Wolford. All right, everyone. I think this is actually a good place to wrap it up for today. Things are definitely slow down right now. Definitely some stuff I want to get done. Great week. First week of the new year. What a great way to start. And I hope we continue and just continue building up off it. Hope everyone has a really, really good weekend. And thanks for everything. I'll talk to you later.